Hello everyone, my name is Meghan LeVota and I offer wisdom, tools, and support for personality integration. How is everybody doing? It has been a while since I uploaded. I will tell you guys more for those who are interested in that towards the end of the video. But if you're new here, I'm an ENFJ, and today I'm going to just be discussing what does an ENFJ look like in their element, or just sort of the concept of an ENFJ in their element, because I've been thinking about this a lot lately. And every personality type of all of the 16 cognitive types probably have their element. Like any person, regardless of their type, could either be in their element or out of their element, whatever that means. And I don't think that every single person of one type is going to be have the same literal element. But the reason why I'm even discussing ENFJs in these terms is because if your dominant function is extroverted feeling, which is true for the ENFJs and the ESFJs, I think that getting in your element is going to be super, super important, perhaps even more important than for other types. I don't know. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. But I guess what I'm realizing is that because there's so many factors with this, but with extroverted feeling as your dominant function, if we are very influenced by and influential in the emotional environment. Typically, if you're an FE Dom, you want to belong. You want to find your people. You want to find harmony. You feel the emotions of the other people in the room. You cannot ignore the mood. And so that mood is just sort of around you at all times, and you cannot ignore it. You probably, if you are an ENFJ, have been told a lot of your life, like, to stop caring what people think, or that you think too much about other people. And the thing is that our brains are just wired to think about other people. Our brains are wired to think about the groups, the collective. Do we fit in? Do we not fit in? What's going on politically? What's going on socially? What's going on in my environment, in my neighborhood? FE is going to be aware of these sorts of things. And, you know, just quick definition for those who are new: extroverted feeling is a cognitive function that is a judging function. It's a way of making decisions, and it is objective. It's sort of the breadth of emotion and feelings, as opposed to introverted feeling, which is the subjective feelings in the inner world. So yeah, that's our dominant function. And so it kind of seems similar to the idea of your element. Are you in your element? Are you not in your element? What is the mood around you? Where are you? Like, do you fit in? Do you feel okay? And the reason why I want to talk about what an ENFJ looks like in their element is because I think that we tend to be sort of chameleons, and we show different parts of ourselves to different people and in different groups. And so I think that that's why whenever you look on the internet at sort of ENFJ examples, in my opinion, they can seem sort of all over the place as far as how they choose to present themselves. Because not all ENFJs are going to choose to present themselves in the same way. Just because we're focused on the external emotions doesn't mean that there's like one collective way of being that every FE user is going to tap into. We're all still individuals. And so really what's important is, since we don't value introverted feeling, we aren't as focused on always abiding by my values, always making sure that my motives are pure, all that sort of stuff. We're very influenced by the environment around us, and also very we engage with it back. So like if we are in a toxic relationship or in a toxic work environment, or have negative relationships with our family, or if we don't feel like we belong, that's not something that is super easy for an ENFJ to ignore. The ENFJ is either going to absorb all of that toxicness and become that way themselves, be completely influenced by the bad crowd or whatever, or like kind of engage back with it and give it too much of your energy. Even if the ENFJ refuses to take part in certain negative behaviors, it's still going to be going through your mind unless you remove yourself from the situation, and unless you take time to dig deep and figure out, what is the environment that I want to put myself in? How do I want to orient myself within a community? How do I want to engage with the world? Because whether you're you're just subconsciously influenced, you are literally engaging and like fighting it all the time, or even if you try and take the high road and ignore people, if it's still going through your mind, if it's still at the back of your mind, like that still can waste a lot of energy. So I believe that because extroverted feeling is the spectrum of emotions, all of which that you could feel, and if your dominant function is extrovert feeling, you're probably going to be willing to and able to feel that whole spectrum. Like if you feel sad, you're going to know you're sad. If you feel happy, you're going to know you're happy. You're going to understand everything in between and like the general spectrum of those things. And you just can't ignore that. It's just a part of life. And what tends to be healthy and easy for a lot of ENFJs to do is to just feel the feeling as it comes up, hope it goes away. But the problem is, what if it never goes away because you're in the wrong environment? What if you keep feeling the same feelings over and over and you don't know what to do because you're not an FI user and you don't really like to, go in your room for a day and really introspect and process your emotions? A lot of times ENFJs will think, I'm just going to feel this feeling to get it out of the way so that I can get rid of my baggage and then move on to tomorrow and hope tomorrow's the next day, another day. And what happens if you do that every single day? What happens if you're an ENFJ and you are always hoping that tomorrow is another day and that it's better, and you just float through? It feels sometimes like the emotions are just sort of over your head. You're like, oh, there it is, there it is, there it is. And like, we tend to be pretty good at naming the category of our emotions, but perhaps we aren't super specific about why those emotions keep happening. So really, whether an ENFJ is in a good mood or not is going to really impact how they show up in the world. So obviously, if you're an ENFJ and you want to be happy, everyone does. But if you're an ENFJ, you probably want to be happy. You probably want to feel like you belong. You probably want to feel like you can harness your creative energy in a way that's productive for everyone around you. You probably don't want to feel super blocked by other people or feel like your opportunities are limited. So this is where we have to harness our tertiary extroverted sensing and harness momentum and use that sort of element of change and transformation to put our impact out there onto the world and actually change our environment and actually say, hey, this is not working for me. If I stay in this environment, the same cycle of emotions are going to keep repeating, and see, your auxiliary introverted intuition is probably going to pop up and start to see all of those patterns. And then you're going to be like, oh my goodness, I don't really know what to do about all of those patterns because, my main strategy is just to feel all the feelings and hope they go away, right? Like, if I feel them, then they can't have any power over me anymore. And that's really, I think, what extroverted feeling does is, if you feel the feelings, they won't have any power over you. And it's kind of it can seem really emotionally weak to some that don't value extroverted feeling and you don't really know the logic behind what we're doing. But really, like, if you aren't afraid to feel, then you won't really be afraid of many things. And you begin to train to understand that you can handle it. So, but anyway, sometimes there's times when you don't have to keep handling it all the time. You actually can just change your environment. And, you know, we're not censors. We do really like growth. Like introverted intuition is very focused on, you know, having a growth mindset and transforming and moving on to the next thing and the next thing. But our extroverted sensing is still not that strong. So, you know, we can use it to help our extroverted feeling go into a better emotional environment. But it's still not something, it's not something we naturally do. It takes a lot of energy for us to move from point A to point B. Once we're on the right track, we can just zoom through. But I guess really it's how do we get from one track to another track is the problem, because we really like to go on a roll. We can see the path and we want to just go down the path. But if we don't know what the path is, or if we realize that the path is not really leading us where we want, and we know like we need to situationally get from here to here, that can be really hard. And if you are an ENFJ who is constantly not in their element, you don't feel like you can be creative, you don't feel like you have anyone to talk to, your whole ass personality is gonna be different. And I have found that as I have moved from different elements, as I have moved from different life experiences, I present myself way differently. And if I'm not in my element, I can be very, very reserved. For some people on YouTube, you might find me to be, if you've been following me for a while, you might find me to be a pretty bold, strong personality. That is me in my element. Hopefully this YouTube channel is getting to see me in my element, but I'm not always in my element. Most people that I have interacted with in my life do not know how bold I am. And why? It's because if I'm not in my element, I'm not allowed to be that. So if you are coming at this from a perspective that you are interested in typology, you want to understand ENFJs, and you want to be able to type them correctly, it is so important to realize, is this person in their element or not? Because the thing is, if your dominant function is extroverted feeling, you're constantly engaging with the environment. And so your, as I said, personality will change. Not your literal cognitive type personality, but personality in the general sense of the term. I will act differently. So for example, I have a close ESTP friend who went to my high school and also my college. In high school, I was in theater and speech and debate and choir, and I was in my element whenever I was like on stage or whatever, but I was not in my element in math class or history class. I would literally go from being obnoxious life of the party to wallflower in the back corner in a class where I didn't really have any friends. I did not ever know how to get along with people who were super into sports. Nothing wrong with being into sports, but back then I really felt, I think, shame that I wasn't athletic, and it seemed like, you know, the popular people were more into sports, or they would form connections at practice, and I wasn't around for that. And so I felt left out and stuff. So I would just sort of try and stay in my lane. And so I would be very reserved. I would not talk to people unless I had a reason to talk to them. And so, but anyway, when I went to college and I was no longer in music, well, I was doing some music, but I was no longer really in that bubble of artsy kids. I was doing journalism, and I had to become friends with more journalism people. And you see, theater kids are really obnoxious, really weird, and it's kind of a competition of who's the most quirky, who's the most weird and out there. And it is not like that with journalism people. Even though I'm friends with people of both kinds, I guess you could say, I kind of had to learn when I was in college, I guess to get along with these people, I have to bring up politics or something, fascinating I read, or a book I'm reading or something. So I kind of went from being a very obnoxious humor to Oh yeah, did you read that thing in the New Yorker? Like, I kind of went from that to that, and both of those were true aspects of my personality. I do would say I have a good sense of humor. I like joking around. I like being playful. I like being obnoxious, and I also like knowing about what's going on in our society and having deep conversations. I also did not drink in high school. I was a total, like, goody two shoes sort of person. But also, you shouldn't drink in high school. Like, it's weird. Like, anyway, I did in college. But the reason I bring up my ESTP friend is because I'm telling you that she told me in college, like sophomore year or something, she was like, "You've really changed since high school." And I was offended by that because at my core, I knew that I've always been true to me. She was more reacting to the extroverted sensing that I literally seemed this way than this way. But for me, I was like, but I've been the same person all along. And also I was like, well, of course I wasn't going to be going to all these parties in high school. I was in high school. And now I'm in college. And so I would go to parties because I'm in college. But anyway, it's still a different element that I was in my personality and the way that I presented myself to people, the way I wanted to introduce myself to strangers was different. So I literally was different, like on the surface, but my actual personality inside felt the same. So that's just an example. And if those of you watch me on YouTube, you probably see how I am like, hey guys, this is an idea I have, blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you my idea. That is not how I am always. That if you guys saw that I recently made it TikTok and I recently posted some of my TikToks, I feel like I was sort of allowing my theater kid to come out a little bit, which was really fun for me. But the point, why am I saying all this? The point is that an ENFJ, because we are engaging with the FE, we're going to seem different, very different based on the situation, perhaps even more different than other types, where I would say perhaps INTP or ISFP might sort of have, perhaps all IP types, they might sort of have, this is who I am, this is my identity, and they just bring that identity wherever they go, and that's fine. Like, I'm not saying that anything's better or worse. Every type has its strengths and weaknesses, but the thing is like, it's important for everyone to be in their element, but if you're wanting to type an ENFJ, you have to look at what is their element, because if an ENFJ feels like they have to hide a part of themselves, then they probably are going to seem a little bit boring, a little bit fake, a little bit reserved, because it is going to feel awkward to like go against the flow of the room and just bring who I am. Like, if I have an awkward sense of humor and I'm around a bunch of people talking about politics, I'm not going to just interrupt the flow by, talking in an accent in like a weird like voice. I'm not going to do that. If I was at a cast party for the Music Man and everybody was being really loud, then yeah, I was going to do that. So how would anybody know who was in a deep discussion talking about politics how freaking weird I am? How would they know? So that is something that has bothered me with being on the internet, is that people assume a lot of things about me. They assume a lot of things about my personality because you guys are only seeing one slice of it. But I guess what I'm saying is that I don't mind holding back certain parts. ENFJs are sort of a chameleon in a way. Like, I want to be able to get along with everybody. I don't ever want to get close enough to a person to where I lose respect for them. If I recognize that me and another person have very different values and opinions and lifestyles, then I would so much rather like send them love from afar, or like stay at the surface level so that we can, still get along. It's just not, it's just not something I like to do, to like start fights with people, or like exist in environments where there's a lot of tension. And so I don't mind like bringing parts of my personality to the back seat. And, you know, I'm used to having like, these are the friends that I joke with, these are the friends that I talk to about philosophy, these are the friends that I go out and go to concerts with. These are the people that share music with me, and I spread myself across all of these sorts of people. And when I'm talking to people, I will bring, I will instantly notice what we have in common, and then I will bring what we have in common out to the forefront. And I understand that that can seem kind of manipulative or sneaky or weird to some people that don't value extroverted feeling, but to me, it's just so natural to focus on what I have in common with people, because it can totally just ease the communication and ease our relations. So if an ENFJ is in an environment where they don't feel like they belong, they don't feel like they can share the best parts of themselves, they're probably going to feel very insecure and awkward and timid, and they're probably going to feel very kind of on edge at all times. And so I think a lot of like the negative stereotypes about an ENFJ happen when a person is not in their element. They do not jive with the environment. And an ENFJ in their element is very, very bold. An ENFJ in their element is very confident and arrogant sounding. They don't mean to sound arrogant, but really they attempt to inspire you to be yourself as well. I think a very, very good example of this is Gary Vaynerchuk, who is Gary V on YouTube. You might have seen him. Now, I was skeptical about him being an ENFJ for a while. I've watched his videos for a while, like maybe like 4 years now, and I've always really looked up to him. I thought I knew he was using FE. I thought that he was maybe an ESTP, probably because I did not feel confident to be that way. I didn't feel confident being that way. But when you're Gary and you have a team of people who support you and get you, and you're speaking to an audience of people that are there to listen to you, that is how an ENFJ talks. When all of a sudden they can stop worrying about if they are liked, they can take the mask off, they can just show you, this is me, this is all of me. When an ENFJ is talking to their boss, who they cannot do that with, or their mom, who they have a strained relationship with, they are absolutely not going to do that. If an ENFJ is in their element and they are surrounded by people who are on their team, who understand them or at least want to, who are rooting for them, then yes, they're going to shine, okay? Like, they're going to be these bold leaders. And the thing with Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V for short, I guess, is I had to watch a lot of his videos to really notice and really see that FE was his dominant function. He was not an ESTP. And to see how strong his NI was. Also with that, he has talked about how he is too nice and that he has always struggled with being too nice. And if you were to look at him now, and if you did not know his background, and you just saw a video of someone sounding really sort of arrogant and cocky and inspirational and motivational, you might think, who the hell do you think you are? And why do you think you're better than me? And that sort of thing. And if you realize that this man has struggled with being too nice his entire life, and he finally got over himself and then decided, you know what, I'm actually going to create something that brings value to the people 24/7. And you know what, I'm going to stop letting people hold me back, and I'm going to start being my full self for the people that need me. If you see that flip he did, then yeah, like, he might seem a little arrogant, and it's because he is no longer concerned and he says this a lot in his videos, he is no longer concerned with the opinions of people that are just going to criticize him that for no reason, you know? He says judge the judger back. And anyway, I've been sort of on a kick of watching more of his videos lately. I used to watch them a lot whenever I was trying to grasp and understand digital media. And now that I am having digital media services of my own, I'm really wanting to see how does he speak to his clients and how does he present himself and stuff. And I'm starting to see a lot of myself in him. That's sort of a side note, but I think that's just a really good example of realizing that no, an ENFJ is not going to seem just super bold and confident. They aren't going to feel the need to if they go to a school or if they're in a job where nobody resonates with that and they know that. It's like, why would you? It's like, why waste your breath? And so I have found that the more confident I get, the more people doubt if I'm an ENFJ, and I want that to stop. I want to help ENFJs get into their element. Get to a place where you're surrounded by people that are supporting you and that you are no longer always worried about finding the thing that you have in common with everybody around you. And you are instead saying, like, actually using your FE, like using your FE for good and not allowing it to hold you back. So I think that's a good place to end. I've rambled a lot. If you like videos like this, please subscribe. If you're an ENFJ who wants me to mentor you in helping to do this and get in your element, please reach out to me. I have my email below. I have a mentoring link. I also offer typing services if you're not sure what your type is. If you want me to talk about, other types in their element, if you have any other video ideas, let me know. I know I'm in the middle of a couple series that I have unfinished. Oh, yeah, I mentioned I'd say this at the end of the video. I'm starting a new job that is fully remote and fully flexible. I am in the past month, I've been in such a transitional phase, pretty much trying to get me to my element. I can talk about that more in another video because I kind of have to go, I'm realizing. But the gist of it is that I really, really value freedom and I really, really value flexibility, and I don't like people breathing down my neck, even if they don't mean to. I'm very, very triggered by anything that seems like micromanaging. I really don't like to be told what to do, and I have resented that about myself for a long time. If you're an ENFJ and you relate, please let me know. But really the thing is that I'm a natural entrepreneur and I kind of just have to do that. And it's really, it's been hard for my FE to really just embrace that, because I can feel the dissonance of me doing that with, things that other people value around me. And it's just, I hate that dissonance of values. And, I try and change, I try and sometimes resent the fact that, I just am suited for this, or like, for whatever reason, lack of flexibility really makes me mad in a way that I cannot really control. I do my best work when I'm passionate and when I love what I'm doing, and so I cannot force myself to work if I'm not passionate. It's just sort of like I can't do it. I wish that I could, because I want to make people happy, but that's just not how I was built. So, yeah, that's another thing I've been learning, that if something is true to you in a deep way like that, you can't change it. Your personal preferences, you can't really change. You can discover them, and you can change what you do with them. You can change how you react to them, how your values, stuff like that, or maybe they do change over time, I don't know. But like, the best example that I can think of is like with your sexuality. If you prefer men or if you prefer women or whatever, that that's inherent. You feel that that's inherent. So what if we thought about it in the same way of like, I prefer flexibility, or I prefer working for myself, or I prefer, like, what if we treated our preferences really seriously and we designed our life in that way? What if we didn't beat ourselves up for that? This could be a whole video of its own that I might do, but thank you for watching and have a wonderful rest of your day.